being here, the Yes Cafe. The protest against bombing Syria. Time is 3 o'clock on Monday, and I appear to be the only one here. Oh dear me. Okay. No true bombing. Here's the end for selling. But they might come later on, we'll see. We'll see what transpires. I'll hang about till 7 street. Thumbs up here, guy. Run. Good one. Thank you. Thumbs up for the crowd. One man protest at the moment. I'll zoom in. There you go. That's a good one. Thank you very much. Yay! Now I got my good action from the road and from people. I'll come back later on, people. See what happens. Bye now.
I'm Colin Fox. I'm the national spokesman of the Scottish Socialist Party. I'm here in the Yes Cafe in Edinburgh South, and it would appear we're just a couple of days away from Britain beginning airstrikes in Syria. The news appears to be that the Labour MPs are to be given a free vote to vote if they want to back Cameron's spurious and nonsensical case for sending air bombers down to Syria. I have to say, the thing that strikes me is it's not that long ago, is it, since Cameron came to the House of Commons and argued that we should bomb President Assad and the Syrian army because of the chemical weapons that he had dropped in the poor innocent civilians in Syria. And of course, thankfully, at least that nonsense was rejected, but this case isn't any better. I have to say that if Cameron had got his way 2 years ago, ISIL would be sitting in Damascus today. They'd be running Syria. And goodness knows what kind of terrorist atrocities would be conducted both in Syria and elsewhere as a consequence of that. So that was rightly rejected, and frankly, Cameron's case for sending in British aircraft and drones into Syria to bomb ISIL is as nonsensical as his argument was 2 years ago. Think about it. There's been 50,000 airstrikes already conducted in Syria by the Americans, by the French, by the other forces that are already there. Britain's got 12 aeroplanes. There's already been 50,000, so what if they do bomb another ISIL base in various parts of southern Syria? I've heard generals over the weekend saying, well, apparently we're all armchair generals now, we've worked out that these won't be effective, they won't change anything. I've heard them say even that all the bombs they dropped in ISIL in Syria in the last while have not been any innocent civilians hit. I've never heard a general who tells you anything else. You know, these are the salesmen of bombs and aircraft, and I'm old enough to remember the Iraq War, where they would come on and they would explain how sophisticated these cruise missiles were. They fire them, they come down the centre street of Baghdad, they turn left at Main Street, past the bookies, past the baker's shop, and they get Saddam Hussein between the eyes. That's how sophisticated they were. And what happened? Within the first weeks of the war standing, one of them landed in Iran. Iran! They couldn't even program it with the right spelling of the country. Instead of it being Iraq, it landed in Iran. And of course, none of these things are as sophisticated. There will be collateral damage. And you look what happened in the last couple of weeks. The Turks shot down a Russian aircraft, killed one of the pilots. That could easily happen with a British aircraft. It could be shot down. One of the pilots could be shot, and then you'll see the House of Commons and all the warmongers saying, airstrikes aren't enough, we have to send in cruise missiles, we have to send in aircraft carriers, etc. The case is a nonsense. It's the thin end of the wedge, and they're just saying we have to do something about Paris, we have to do something. Well, doing something is not enough. You need to do something sensible. You have to do something that will solve the problem. And Cameron's statement last week, I looked at him and I watched him, I thought, it's Tony Blair all over again. Remember when Tony Blair presented this dodgy dossier? I've got evidence, he said, absolutely conclusive evidence that Saddam Hussein's got weapons of mass destruction. Never appeared. And Cameron's equivalent is, he stood up in Parliament last week and claimed that there were 50,000 moderate fighters in the Syrian Free Army. You think to yourself, what's a moderate fighter? The idea of a moderate with a Kalashnikov or an AK-47 is a contradiction in terms. But as Robert Fisk and Patrick Coburn have written in The Independent, and John Pilger has said in Russia Today, all experts, these are authoritative figures in my view of what's happened in the Middle East. The fact is, the Free Syrian Army barely exists. Robert Fisk has written in today's newspaper saying 70,000. There isn't 70 of them. There isn't 70 of them. The only forces on the ground that are capable of beating ISIL, ironically for Cameron, is the Syrian army of Bashar al-Assad. The very people that he wanted to nuke 2 years ago. And so what Britain's in danger of getting sucked into a civilian civil war in Syria between Islamic terrorists and Bashar Assad. That's the options. That's why this case is a nonsense. Cameron's making it up as he goes along, and I hope that sense prevails in Parliament this week. The SNP MPs are to be congratulated. Those Labour MPs like Jeremy Corbyn are to be congratulated. The Green MP and others who stand up and call this for what it is. This is absolute nonsense. Britain should keep out of it. If you want to defeat terrorism, you deal with the sources of terrorism. And ISIL breeds on the fact there isn't a democratic regime in the entire Middle East. They're one bunch of despots after another, usually backed by Britain and the West, like Qatar, like the Saudi state, like the Gulf states. They're all corrupt. They're all taking the oil for themselves, and the people in these countries see nothing. And that's the breeding ground that you have to address. Not the consequences of Islamic fundamentalism. The breeding ground that says to people they're so disgusted by the Saudi regime that belongs to the feudal dark ages. They're so disgusted by the Gulf states, in other words, that they want to seek revenge on them. And as things stand, that's the great tragedy for the Middle East. The only outlet for that anger would appear to be Muslim fundamentalism. That's the tragedy that we have to deal with, and it's the reality we have to deal with. And airstrikes this week and next week will not make a blind bit of difference.
Thank you very much. Well done. Thank you. Right, Mike.
Okay, I'm Mike Blackshaw. I run the Yes Cafe and Hub. Contrary to reports from the National, my name is Blackshaw, not Blackstock, but never mind, journalists will be journalists. We called this protest only to vent our own feelings. I think Colin's put it in a wonderful way, as Colin always does. And for goodness sake, let's get him into the Scottish Parliament without any nonsense. Here. But I just want to put a different angle on. My ex-wife and best friend is French. They were badly dealt with, obviously from the attacks in Paris. It affected the French very, very badly because they realised they were vulnerable, they wasn't secure. A feeling that I think most people will come across and know is a very hard feeling. But although Hollande dived in with his revenge tactic, because that's all it was, the vast majority of French disagree with him entirely. They do want action taken, they do want the place secure, but it's never going to be done by bombing 20,000 feet. And as I've said this week and last week in little nippets and boards outside, you know, maybe we should start a new business and sell ISIS yellow caps and the innocent people red caps so that we can spot them. You know,
From 20,000 feet?
Yep, for 20, well, whatever. The other thing is, we've been here before, Iraq, Afghanistan. Britain were responsible in those things of attacking 8 wedding parties. They actually attacked 3 hospitals, 2 UN encampments, and I'm sorry the word misses there, but yeah, storage units, and vast amount of innocent people. Now, those innocent people's families got angry, and they are the terrorists of today. You know?
Yeah.
So that's not the way. I'm not even going to tell you ground troops is the way. We have to do it from a multifactional way forward. We need to talk, you know. Everyone blames Muslims. Jihad is seven steps to jihad, and 5 of them are talk, talk, talk and talk, you know. So don't blame it on Muslims. It's nothing to do with that at all. It is actually wrong. It is between Sunni and Shia and various other things. Some people want to blame Israel. Okay, they're stubborn old buggers, but I mean, it is not that. That's not the problem. The problem is all these organisations wish to fight their own way. Now, as we see our civilization, they are probably doing now what we did 500 years ago. All right, and I think it's time that we spoke and started talk instead of Cameron, who had stayed. Let's be honest, had stayed out of it when he lost his first Syrian vote. Instead of coming out with a thing, well, let's bomb and let's do this, let's do that, he should have been spending so much time being the man in the middle, the peacemaker, the man that Blair should have been and could never have been after him situation. Unfortunately, years to come, maybe after the death, they will be called despots. Blair should have been in a war crimes trial, and Cameron's on his way.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no reason, as Colin said, you know, we can get our 3 planes, crank them up and be 1% of the bombs that go down. What's that for? To show we're big boys, we deserve a place on our Security Council, you know, after all. Oh no, we could nuke them, of course, because let's be honest, we're not doing anything with them. You know, nah, it's all right. And I'm past anger, I'm now so cynical, I'm upset. But the great thing I will say is, it's not parties against parties. Tories have been popping in all day to say they agree. You know, I haven't seen much from the Labour, but there again, you know, if the SNP are for something, they must be against it. So that's their problem. But you know, it's just got to stop. I'm sorry, although everyone knows me will know I'm 100% behind Scottish independence. This could be it, you know, in a way, because I think within 5-6 weeks, people will be so sick of the bombing, it won't happen. Colin's quite right, plane will come down, someone will be killed, then we have to go to ground troops, boots on the field. Oh, we don't need them. Yes, you do.
Yes,
you know, before you know where you are, we've made a hell of a mess, another 20 years of trying to sort it out, and then we put another government into place, and they, as I say, I won't go into how big corporations will take them over, but no, sorry, I'm not going any further, and thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mick. Well, here I am, folks. Back home with what was supposed to be a protest in Edinburgh. At the Yes Cafe. No bombs on Syria. Good God. To say I'm disappointed is an understatement. Turnout was absolutely, well, it wasn't a turnout. There wasn't a turnout, that's why I'm bitter. Of course I'm in Edinburgh. And don't say you don't know. And I know people are going to come back, oh I never knew it was on. I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And I am aware there was an emergency protest in Glasgow and they turned out in their droves. It's a hell of a difference between Glasgow and Edinburgh, isn't there? I've had this online the past 2 or 3 days. Wait a minute, four people turned up. Well, it's from 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening. 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 7 o'clock in the evening. Unbelievable. Apparently, so I've been told, Edinburgh and surrounding areas are full of Tories and the so-called Lib Dems, whatever the hell they are. Well, I think they're right. I don't know what's going to happen once the bombs start to fall on Syria. These will all start complaining. soon as the first child is killed, and it will happen, by the way. Yes, it will happen. Cameron and his warmongering bastards will drop bombs on children in Syria. Warmongers, greedy. War makes money, right? Billions of pounds war makes. And you pay for it, by the way. Always remember that, you pay for it. It's supposed to have been a time of austerity. What a load of rubbish. Austerity is a complete lie. Don't believe it. It is a lie. I'm drift off the point here now. My idea is to try and stop them bombing Syria. As I say, they were out in Glasgow in the droves. My thanks to my friends Independent Live for covering that event. And my friends in Glasgow who turned out to protest. Hell, I wish I'd stayed with them. What the hell am I stuck in Edinburgh for? I sometimes wonder, what am I doing here? Unfortunately, I live here, surrounded by people who just don't seem to care. I don't know. Batting my head against the brick wall again. Anyway, I'm stuck here. And I know a lot of yous are going to try and batter the hell out of me for saying this. What I've just said, that is. Oh, I'm too busy, I've got to wash my hair, I'm watching the bairns tonight. Oh, any excuse. I'm fed up with your excuses. What the hell's happened to humanity? That is the question. Run by greedy politicians, warmongers. Don't you understand? People are more important than bloody bombs. I'm going to be losing the head shortly. I'm going to stop this. I'm very disappointed with the people of Edinburgh and the surrounding areas, and that is an understatement. You can come back with me with whatever you want. I can handle it. I've been doing this for years. I can handle it. That's the hell. I'm finished.